Hi, so first of all I'm going to apologise for the fact that it might be a little bit echoey because I'm filming in my bathroom, which as you can tell is not normally where I film. If it sounds better, please obviously let me know and I'm going to find out myself. But yeah, I'm going to try out the Rimmel Wake Me Up foundation. For this I'm going to use the Real Techniques buffing brush. I find with most foundations I find a brush is always better because whenever I use my fingers I find that I tend to use more product. I don't feel like it's spread out as evenly on my face, so I always find a buffing brush is better for that. So let's get started. You are going to see my face in all its red glory. So just one pump and I get that much, so it's quite a fair amount, and I literally just stick with my brush on my hand like that. And I have a mirror down here, so I apologise if I'm not looking at the screen. And I do feel like this isn't great coverage, to be honest. I feel like it's a really light coverage, probably for a more natural look. I'm going to go for another pump. Sometimes I need it, sometimes I don't. But it is quite small pumps. And I just buff it around my face. But I mean, when I've used my fingers, I don't feel like it's so even, and I feel like it looks cakey in certain areas. And the more product you apply to your face, the more I find that I'm going to end up having it look greasy or slip off of my face. I don't use very much on my forehead. I find that area I don't need so much foundation, but also that's one area that's going to get really greasy really quickly, so to speak. And I also find that it tends to sit in your lines if you use that area. And as you can hear, I have a child coming. So yeah, I feel like it's really light coverage. I feel like it gets a bit of the redness away, but not an awful lot. So in actually reviewing this foundation, I'm kind of in two minds about it. A lot of people have said a lot of good things about it. I feel it's a light coverage foundation. It's not for heavy coverage. It's not going to cover up spots or anything like that, and I don't think it would cover up, you know, acne scarring or anything like that. And I would say that it's a very sort of natural, light foundation. It feels, I feel with this foundation that when I get warm, I feel greasier with this foundation on. I've tried wearing primers and various other things, but I do feel that with this foundation I feel more hot and greasier with it. I used to be dry skin to combination, and now I'm oily to combination. So over the course of a few months my skin type seems to have changed. But in the dry patches of my skin, I feel that it doesn't really cling to, so maybe this is something that's more for dry skin types. In the oily parts of my skin, I'm finding that I feel like my skin is more oily with this. A lot of people have said about shimmer with this foundation as well. Something that when I went to buy it I didn't notice. I looked at the bottle really hard, couldn't see anything like that really made any alarm bells ring. So I purchased it, but then after wearing it for a couple of days I was noticing that whenever I was getting sort of 3 hours in the day, I was going like this and finding, well, you know, leaning on your hands, and finding I was having little small shimmer particles on my hands. And I was wearing matte powder and matte blusher on and no eyeshadow. Some days some matte eyeshadow. So I was like, where is this glitter coming from? But in actual fact, looking at this really closely, and you have to look really closely, there is small shimmer particles in this foundation. You really do have to sit there in the right light to see it, to be able to see it. You know, probably in your bathroom it's probably best with a near a window. But there are definitely shimmer particles in this foundation. And I find the hotter I get and the more oily I get, the more shimmery my face looks and the more shimmer I find on my face. It's like the foundation isn't transferring, but the shimmers are transferring, which is kind of weird. I get about 3 hours wear of this foundation, so it's not very long wearing. I'm finding by lunchtime I am oily as hell. So it's not a long wearing foundation, and I definitely wouldn't recommend this for oily skin. I wanted to love this because a lot of people do. Another thing that I will say about this foundation is there is a good colour range. There are pretty light colours, so if you're someone that's quite pale, this is a foundation to take a look at. Like I say, again, if you're dry skin, I feel like it would be more appropriate. I'm in 100 Ivory. I'm usually in NW20 in MAC, and in Chivo I am a Mont Blanc Light 2 in NARS. That's the comparison in colour. It's not far off, to be perfectly honest. I'd say the colour, like I say, the colour range I'd say is a pretty good go. And one thing I will say, which makes me kind of compare it against the NARS, is the fact that with NARS, it's a known fact that occasionally you'll have a day where this will not work. It will just be oily. For the money of it, that's not a very good thing, but I love this foundation because I'd say probably 99% of the time I never have a problem with this. Probably a bit less than that actually, probably 95% of the time I don't have a problem with this. But I will have the odd day where I go oily really quickly, and I don't know if it's a case of you have to get the consistency just right for it to work or what the problem is, but I do find that occasionally I have a problem with this. With this, I have had the opposite, where I've had 1 or 2 days where this has worked really well. Whether it be something to do with the weather or my skin type, I have no idea. But at the end of the day, you don't want to buy a foundation where 95% of the time it is rubbish, and then you have the odd 1 or 2 days where it is actually... I keep running out of memory on my camera and having to go back and delete things. Anyway, to the point, I don't think this foundation would be a very good foundation for people with oily skin, mainly for the reasons that I've just mentioned. And I don't know what that was. Anyway, yeah, I don't think it'd be that good for oily skin, but obviously everyone's different, so everyone has different needs and wants. But personally, I don't understand why you would put shimmer in a foundation. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that's helped anyone who's interested. Bye!